Hi everyone, it's Dr. G. I'm here to talk to you about sociology and the sociological perspective. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's first start by defining sociology, because what I have found is that a lot of my students come into my classroom and really have no idea what they have enrolled in. So we define sociology as the scientific study of human society. Well, what exactly does that mean? Let's start by defining the word society. Society is defined as a group of people who live in a defined territory and share a way of life. So examples that we can look to would include the United States, Brazil, and China, okay? Now, when we think about the people who live in a defined territory and share a way of life, who are the people? Well, the people would include people like your family, your friends, your classmates, your work colleagues, and even your neighbors. And of course, it would include other people's friends and family and coworkers and neighbors and so on and so forth. So as you can kind of see, in sociology, we focus on not necessarily individual people, but we focus on groups of people. Now, another major component of our definition of sociology includes science, because indeed sociology is a social science that uses scientific principles. So how can we define science? Science is defined as a systematic method of discovery. And through the use of observations and predictions and testing, science has shown us many, many things over the years. For example, science has shown us that earthquakes are not caused by angry gods. Science has shown us that the earth is not the center of the universe. And science also has shown us that poor people are no more likely to break the law than rich people. Science and sociology will show us that our hunches and our gut feelings are actually often very wrong. We'll come back to talk about science in a future video. Unlike mathematics and astronomy, sociology is a relatively new science that developed in industrializing Western Europe, including countries like the UK, France, and Germany. Some of the classical sociologists include people like Auguste Comte, Karl Marx, and Emil Durkheim. Auguste Comte is considered the father of sociology. He is also the person that is credited with coming up with the name sociology. Another big contribution that he made to sociology is what he called positivism. And positivism is the application of the scientific approach to the social world. Karl Marx developed an understanding of our social world based on economic competition and the exploitation of the masses. And Emil Durkheim. Durkheim studied many different things in sociology, including religion and suicide. He showed that suicide is not the individualistic act that we think that it is. He found that there are social patterns among groups of people who actually commit suicide. For example, men as a group are more likely to commit suicide than women as a group. Protestant Christians as a group are more likely to commit suicide than Catholics as a group. Finally, the rich as a group will be more likely to commit suicide than poor people as a group. This leads us to what is called the sociological perspective. And I find the sociological perspective to be the most important concept for sociology students to really wrap their heads around. What is the sociological perspective? The sociological perspective is first recognizing and then understanding how the social world influences and shapes individuals into the people that they become. You know, when you think about it, society guides our thinking and our behavior. It shapes and molds us into who we are. Every aspect of who we are is heavily influenced by others, by society. Yes, every individual is unique, but we might not be as unique as we make ourselves out to be. We more than likely don't see this, or worse yet, don't want to see it. Here are some examples of what I'm talking about. Why do you speak the language that you speak? Did you have any choice in it? Why do you dress the way that you dress? Why do you eat what you eat? Why do you listen to the music that you listen to? Why do you follow the religion, if any, that you follow? And why do you want to get married, or why do you not want to get married? All of these, if we admit it, are actually highly influenced by other people, society, the sociological perspective. Here are some additional examples of how society influences us. Why do most Americans want and have 2 children, while people living in poor countries want and have 5 or more children? Why do the children of rich families go to incomplete college at much higher rates than poor families? Why do minorities, women and people of color, along with people in the LGBT community, face more discrimination in the workplace than non-minorities? Here's how we often think. I call it the individual perspective. I am who I say that I am. I make my own decisions. Others do not easily influence me. I think for myself. The sociological perspective, however, will say, oh, wait a minute, not so fast. When we understand the sociological perspective and how society shapes and molds us into who we are, we will then start to think this way instead. I am a product of the social world in which I come from. Others have actually made many of my choices. Other people easily influence me. I do not think for myself. But the good news is, I can think for myself. And that brings up the importance of critical thinking in sociology. We so often believe that we had a lot to do with creating who we are. But the sociological perspective will show us that we are perhaps not the unique individual that we make ourselves out to be. The society and culture in which we live, the families that we come from, the people that we work with and go to school with, all of these people have heavily influenced who we are, how we think, and what we do. So in sociology, we use critical thinking to take a step back, to look at things objectively using the scientific method to understand things and how they really, really are. rather than the way that we see them or the way that we want them to be. And when we implement critical thinking, what we will find is that we are perhaps not the people that we think that we are. We are indeed a social product. We are the product of our social world. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you back very soon when we talk about more topics in sociology and continue our journey. See you later. Bye-bye.